welcome everybody to another great episode of the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. I'm Alan, and today we're joined by a fantastic guest. We're joined by none other than Dr. Lauran Starr. She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist, best-selling author. In fact, she has a brand new book out called Evidence-Based Inclusion. It's time to focus on the right needle. So that's what we're going to do today. Focus on why it's so important to have diversity, equity, and inclusion in your sports teams and sports organizations. So we're going to have a fantastic show for you here on the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. But before we get started, let me show you something really cool. I want to thank our great sponsor for today, Chef G's Florida Barbecue Sauce. So delicious and addicting, you may need a support group. So I want to thank our great sponsor for today, Chef G's Florida Barbecue Sauce. Please feel free to pick up a 4-pack at flbbqsauce.com. Again, that's flbbqsauce.com. Don't forget that sauce. But without any delays, let's bring on Dr. Lauran Starr. So please tell people a little bit about your background in HR specialist.
Exactly. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Alan. Really appreciate it. So my background, I have been in the DE&I space, so diversity, inclusion, and equity. I've been in this space for about 20 years now, and it does fall under HR, as HR is part of the employee experience.
Yeah.
So that's where my niche falls. I am a workplace inclusion psychologist. I head up DE&I programming for an organization in Boston, and it's always looking at inclusion and bringing that to the forefront. So it's a lot of, it's great work. And DE&I, diversity and inclusion, it's all over the place. So it's not just in corporate, it's your sports teams, it's, your schools, it's everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we're going to get into that a bit. In fact, why is diversity so important in a sports organization, front office, and on the team?
Yeah, is diversity important? Let's just level set that. Is diversity important? Yes. Is it the first thing we should be looking at? No. We should be looking at creating on a sports team, right, that inclusion. No matter who you've got playing, if they're not inclusive of each other, if they're not seeing each other's strengths and playing towards those strengths, then the team's going to lose.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to see when you watch, or at least, right, for me anyways, I watch these football games and hockey games and baseball. And I'm looking, right, my mind is actually looking to see how inclusive is this team? Like, I think that'll be my next study, right, is to really look at inclusion and success ratio, because we want our teammates to have our back all the time, right? When I fumble, I'm hoping my teammate will pick that up. So inclusion is really important. Now, when we talk about diversity, we don't want to give up quality with the lens of diversity, right? That creates tokenism. So we don't want that. We want to be, right, from a sports lens, when it comes to any of your talent, be it in the front office, be it in PR and marketing and sales, or an actual player or ref on the team, we want the best of the best.
Yes.
Right? Like at the end of the day, Alan, seriously, like, you don't want me playing for, well, I'm a Patriots fan. I know, boo hiss. All right, leave me alone. But right, you don't want Dr. Lauran playing on the Patriots team because I'm a woman. I'd get freaking clobbered. Right, regardless of my diversity. So, we want to be bringing on board the best and the brightest. Now, diversity for the sake of diversity, or when we have diversity, say in your meetings, your front staff, your executive team, your coaches, when we then shine that lens into diversity and we're inclusive, problem solving, innovation, right, understanding, you get a much bigger picture, right? Diversity provides a bunch of different tints of glasses. And looking through the lens with a blue tint, I'm going to see different things than an orange tint. And right, that's what that diversity does, is that it helps with that innovation and problem solving. So we absolutely want diversity and we want talent. So we want talented diversity.
Yes, that's right. And recently the NFL did something a little unorthodox. They hired Jeff Saturday, who was really kind of a good friend of the owner, And without really having collegiate or NFL experience, he got the job. Where somebody who is a minority, how would they feel, or what should they do to position themselves to get a job like that?
Yeah, right. That's where I think in sports, right, you can face that in corporate as well. That's that I know someone, so I'm going to put them in this role, but yet they're not qualified.
Right.
And that, can I say on there? Because that's
Yeah. Yeah.
right. When you're at the receiving end of that, you are more qualified, but you didn't get picked because you don't hang out with this person. I think that shows you the importance of networking. And I do say that to a lot of my marginalized groups that I speak with, is networking is key. It is critical. Know what your brand is, right? These are just basic business thoughts and tips. However, it's not a basic tip if you're in a community that doesn't repeatedly say that.
Right. Right.
Right. It's brand new. So know what your brand looks like. Know who you're networking with, right? You never miss that opportunity to grab a drink with the owner. You never miss that, or you make those opportunities happen for yourself. By better networking and branding, you're taking away that diversity lens. Right?
Yeah.
You want to be, regardless of your different affinities, and that's that's ethnicity, that is skin tone, that is gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, the whole veteran status, disability, blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever your affinities are. The better you're branded and the better you're networked in, those kind of fall to the wayside. You want to be the person that they go, oh, we need a coach, or we need an assistant coach. Boom, that's my person. That's who I'm thinking of. We need to do a better job self-promoting ourselves.
Yes.
And right, honestly, Alan, I think anyone that, and I'm going to call it out, anyone that hasn't grown up white, male, right? We all struggle with that self-promotion. So we teach our boys to we teach I'm going to just call it, right? We teach our Caucasian white boys, be confident, be strong, constantly be promoting yourself, work to your skills. We don't teach our white girls that.
Okay.
Right. And we certainly don't teach African American young boys to be out on the streets being right. That, let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah. So I think right there is one leg tied behind your back. If you're not used to self-promoting yourself, and you're not used to really speaking to your values and constantly having them shine.
Yeah.
So we got to get better at that.
And with you having so much corporate America experience, a lot of people think that that's just makeup. I know the Jeff Saturday thing was something that was in news, but talk about your experience from working in HR, that, hey, these things do happen on a daily basis.
These things happen on a daily basis. Absolutely. Right. We all practice, not to throw blame out there, but we all practice, regardless of who you are in your affinities, similarity biases.
Okay.
Right. I want to work with someone who looks and sounds and acts like me.
Okay.
Right? Unconsciously, right? Consciously, I go, oh, what would be really good on this team is someone that's diverse or brings a different perspective. But then that unconscious bias comes up when, a white woman sits across from me and we're like besties. I'm like, I gotta hire her. She's might not be the best hire for the team, but there's that interpersonal relationship click.
Yeah.
Right. We need to be aware of that. And this happens, right? Who's getting the right job? Do they have the right skills? I know your listeners are well aware of what's going on with the affirmative action right now in colleges and whatnot. As soon as an organization makes diversity a priority through quota attainment, you've created you really have created a workplace environment that is not going to work well together. It becomes an us versus them, because it's all about the numbers.
Yeah, right. It's just, and how can an organization work around that? Like you mentioned, you might have a feeling that you have this bestie, she's in there doing a great job, doing an interview, and you want to hire her, but how do you fight against that, saying, okay, let's keep it about the job?
Yeah, right. Let's keep it about the job again. But right, we take a step back. You have to. So for your sports teams, for instance, when they're hiring internally in the offices and whatnot, you want to create a job description that's language neutral. So right, we use them. We don't use he or she. We just use them. We list in that job description only the must-haves.
Yeah. Yep.
It is amazing, Alan, it is amazing how many times I'll go through resumes. We list just the must-haves, and you know what goes away is that 4-year degree. Do
Okay.
you
Okay.
absolutely have to have that degree to do this job? If you're a doctor, a nurse, yes, right? If you're in finances, gosh, yes, I want you to have an understanding of how to do finances and spreadsheets and whatnot. That's not necessary for every job out there. So really going through and listing just the must-haves, and then we have to train our hiring managers, our people managers that are doing the hiring. We have to train them to be on the lookout for those similarity biases. You know,
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for me to have a conversation when we're looking at a group of individuals to hire. It's not uncommon for me to go, okay, so let's talk dirt here. Like, what clicked with you here?
Mhm.
What exactly was it? Was it a similarity bias coming through, or and I think it's really important that we have those behavioral style interviewing questions.
Yeah.
Right? That's the proof in the pudding.
So basically, you have interviews not designed for one criteria of background of people.
No, you've got it right. We have, behavioral style interviewing based on, the core competencies of that job. And everybody gets asked the same question
Okay.
or the same subset of questions. I always find it interesting, and I can pretty much pick out fairly quickly who's got a bias based on the questions they did not ask.
Wow, that's interesting.
Right.
So
And I'm like, well, why didn't we ask that? Like you asked this question of the three other candidates, you didn't ask it here. And it's unconscious, it's having that conversation of, well, where, why did you not ask this? Oh, I don't know. I just skipped over it. Nope. Let's dig a little bit deeper there.
yes, and
Yeah.
sometimes you find the reverse. Somebody in minority may get a star position, a big time position, and then they have to feel with, oh, he just got it, or he or she got it because of the quota. They didn't really qualify, but they got it because of a number system. Talk on
Mhm.
that experience of somebody getting a job who's really qualified, but the perception is they got it because they're trying to meet a quota.
Yeah, I was right. I can tell you that from a couple different perspectives. I mean, there was a time when I was promoted. I was the youngest and first female VP for a large organization.
Okay.
Right. And I was 28.
Wow.
And right, it was like a big deal. Like, oh, this is our first female in the VP suite. Not only that, she's 28. My credibility went from 100 to 0 as soon as I got promoted because I was the token female. And I had to work really hard to prove and bring my credibility back up to that level that I had impact. And the first 6 months of that job was not fun. It
Wow.
was not fun. I wasn't listened to. Right? I wasn't heard because of that. All I can say, you have to own it as quick as humanly possible. You have to call out the elephant in the room. We have to talk about it. If we want it to go away, we
Yeah.
have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And even back then, I remember having the meeting saying, okay, so I'm going to call the elephant in the room. I'm 28
Okay.
and I'm a female. So that's the elephant in the room. Y'all are sitting there biting your nails. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why that's important and what my perspective brings to the table
So
to get
going
that right.
back, you would
Yeah.
just say next time if you are in that position, someone else where they get the job, they lose credibility because people think it's just the hookup.
Yeah.
How do you address that right away?
Yeah. Right out of the gate, right? That's having that conversation of, hey, right, like this may or may not be what you're thinking, but I just want to have that conversation. And maybe it is sharing your resume a little bit. Maybe it's calling it right out. Depends on how much toxicity there is around or
Mhm.
how much the microaggressions are around. I always tell new leaders, regardless of their affinities, is you want to have, your first or second leadership meeting is getting to know the team and the team getting to know you. And you've got to come through that, as that solid leader,
Yeah.
um, and your leadership style. And that's being really transparent about that.
Yes.
Same thing when we have a new member joining our team. Same thing, right? We want to, as leaders, continually level set so we can continue to rise. Because
Right.
where I am today was not where I was 2 weeks ago. Same with the team that I'm working with. We're much higher now.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
right. So I think regardless of your affinities, really getting in there, level setting from the get-go, that will help improve your credibility. That may or may not have taken a ding, right? We're not in the 80s anymore. We're not in the 90s anymore. Right. Just calling it out and level setting and getting everybody on the same page. And what that looks like really depends on your team. I always tell people I'm an open book. Ask me anything. Right. And we'll back that up. So I think that's important. And does that put the onus on the person and not the team? It does. It
Yes.
does, but that's what good leaders do. So, the pushback I get from that, and I'll probably get from some of your listeners is, well, that's not fair. I shouldn't have to drive my purpose, my mission further. That's right. Like I should come into that leadership role completely intact. Nobody comes into that leadership role completely with full credibility. It just doesn't happen. So regardless of your affinities, it is what it is.
Right.
It,
And I know that some people have their affinities. How could someone just say, you know what? I'm just not going to look at the person, let's say, and judge them and just look at what's in front of me. How could someone,
Mhm.
what advice can you give them who's has someone in front of them saying, you know what, they may not look like you or act like you or talk like you, but they actually might be somebody greatness in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to, right, there's training there. There's recognizing that what you're seeing really is only 10% of what makes that person unique.
Hmm.
It's, the 90% is under the surface.
Yeah.
And we know that employees want their managers, want their leaders, their supervisors to be invested in their success so that, there is that give and take. There is that give and take regardless of your affinities. And again, right, unconscious bias training is really important. Microaggression training is really important. Level setting the organization around DE&I. What does it mean? Those are three entirely different things. And how do they connect here? And where are we as an organization in this journey?
Yeah.
Are we just looking for the diversity or do we have that inclusive culture that'll keep that? So yeah, it's a bigger lens.
Exactly. And speaking of that, you spoke a lot about this in your book. Talk about your new book that just got released to our listeners and so that
Yeah,
they get involved.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So it is called Evidence-Based Inclusion. It's time to focus on the right needle. And the book really walks you through, and it can be read by anyone. You don't have to be a DE&I practitioner or an HR professional. The book really walks you through, here's diversity, here's how far we have not come with diversity, here's the why, and here's all the evidence to that. And then we launch into the inclusion paradigm, which is how to build inclusion in your workplace that's been tested and has data that supports that practice.
Yeah.
So it truly is evidence-based. There's a lot of research in that book. And it focuses on diversity, then transitions you to inclusion. So yeah, it's pretty good. Lots of tools and tips.
That sounds like a great read there, and definitely people are gonna post it up and get a copy. I'm gonna make sure
Yeah.
we support
Go
that.
get a copy. Yes. Yep.
And also, how can people follow you? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is just to go to my website, and that's just Dr. Lauran Star, LAURANSTAR.com. All my social clicks are right there. Everything is right. Just go to my website. You can jump in there and subscribe and do all of that fun stuff.
Yes, so we really appreciate Dr. Lauran Starr joining us here on the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. We appreciate your time, and
My
thank you so
pleasure.
much. And congratulations on the new book, and much success to you.
Thank you. Thanks,
You're welcome.
Alan, for having me. Goodbye, everyone.
You're welcome. Take care now. Bye bye now.